You're listening to I Have Some Notes, a podcast supported by listeners like you. To contribute, visit patreon.com/I Have Some Notes.
Here's a pitch. A big sci-fi action movie about a genius engineer who discovers a way to travel to the 8th dimension. And he has to use his inventions to save the Earth from the creatures that escape from the 8th dimension.
Sounds great. Like a Tony Stark type.
Exactly. And he's a brain surgeon.
Okay.
And a rock star.
Sure.
And a samurai.
What?
And a comic book hero.
All right, whoa. I have some notes.
Welcome, everyone, to I Have Some Notes, the movie podcast with cuts, keeps, punch-ups, and tweaks on mediocre movies. I'm Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Welcome to I Have Some Notes on hard mode.
Yes, because today we are discussing the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. And for this multiversal dimension-hopping movie, I had to call in some experts, frankly. I don't know how else to describe them. We're joined by David Ray and Laena Anderson of the Quantum Kickflip podcast. It is a Slug Blaster actual play podcast. Slug Blaster's a game, in short, where you jump to other dimensions to do skateboard tricks. Dave, Laena, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
I am so great. I am so excited to be here to discuss this wild movie.
Yeah, Dave, your first time joining us. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look, I'll be honest. This movie was a wild card for me because I thought, I'll just watch the movie once. I'll just have a couple things to say in the movie. I had to watch it a second time just to kind of get a grasp on this movie. So I don't know. I feel like I'm out of my depth on this one already.
Whereas I feel like, Laena, do you at least appreciate it's not mute?
I do very much appreciate that it is not mute. I had a much better time with this movie. I do still have some notes.
So yeah, I guess was this everyone's first time with Buckaroo Banzai? Who had seen this before? Or were you, normally this is also where I ask if you're familiar with the source material, but this
regrettably no, and it seems expansive.
Yes.
This was my first time watching it, and here's the thing: like, it did feel like I was supposed to know where it's coming from. Like it plays in such a way. It's like, oh, like the Buckaroo Banzai series of movies, and then I was just out of the loop, and it's like, nope. No, this is the first time it's ever been committed to screen, and it's a wild way to do a movie. That's all I know.
At the risk of jumping ahead to the things we liked, that was something that was deeply endearing to me. I liked that it was a one-off novelty. No one had ever seen anything like this before, and everyone was like, the series. I enjoyed that premise very, very much.
Same. A lot of people have compared this movie to Doctor Who, but it made me think of the Venture Brothers and the Thrilling Adventure Hour and Invincible. And that making me think of the Venture Brothers is the quickest way to my heart. Venture Brothers pulls this shit all the time where they just introduce new characters and basically give you nothing but an aesthetic and a name, and you kind of just figure out what their deal is from like a persona as subtle as a pro wrestler. Like, you're like, oh, that's his deal, and here he is. Yeah, okay, I got it. And this movie does that too in a way that, I warms my heart.
I kept thinking about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is this obscure British show where, like, the premise of that show is that it's poorly made, it's poorly written, it's poorly performed, bad special effects, and, like, but they're doing it very intentionally. Like, that's the joke of the show. But then this movie is that, but earnestly, like it was like, no, we're trying to make a great movie, and this is what it is, and it's just like, this is wild. Like I just kept thinking about Dark Place, and I do recommend if you do like this movie, watch that show. It's free on YouTube. It is very good.
Well, this movie does play things very earnestly, but it is also very much an intentional love letter to serials from an earlier time and to kind of like late night B movies. And just to iterate, I actually have seen this movie before. I might be the only one here who had seen this movie before and was excited to watch it again.
Yeah, I was overall pretty pleased, but this has been divisive. This has been divisive in film circles over the years. It has been divisive in our own Discord. It was divisive on my love seat.
Amanda on the show when?
Like, to me, when I'm looking at this movie and everything that's going on in it, it feels like there was a writer's room and everybody was pitching their ideas for this character and what happens and everything. And at no point did anyone say, no, we will not include that. Yeah. And one of the people in that writer's room was an 8-year-old child. So it was just, everything was in there.
It was just yes and the entire way to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I've spent an inordinate amount of my life watching very bad movies. You know, I got started with Mystery Science Theater, then the bad movie night craze, and this feels to me like it should be a very bad movie because it has all the components of a fairly big failure. Like there's not a lot of connective tissues. The characters, don't have much depth to them, and you can't really follow along with the plot in any sort of straightforward way. So, but the thing about it of this movie that's kind of, I don't know, beautiful is that, the actors are extremely good. Like, it's got a great cast. They're all on board. I watched a bunch of interviews with like Lithgow and Weller and these guys, and like they all said, "I don't get this movie. I didn't get it when I read the script." But they had a fantastic time on set, and the production design, like there's so much love in everything that they're putting on screen. Like it's hard. Like even though I like kind of walked away with this kind of feeling a little bit mediocre about it, it's hard not to really appreciate it because of all those elements that are put into it. And it is like, regardless of how you feel about it at the end, it is, like you say, Dave, it's like a really wild ride and something that I won't forget.
It's so a very
no one can
movie.
deny that it was a big swing.
Yeah. Funny that you mentioned John Lithgow. Apparently he's gone on record saying this is one of his favorite movies of his own to rewatch. Just because it's goofy and fun.
Well, he makes such a meal out of it.
Oh, he is
like,
just consuming all of the scenery in every scene he's in.
Every moment was delightful.
Well, let's catch our listeners up to some of the details because we're dropping our actors and stuff. So, in case you're unaware, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension was released in 1984, directed by W.D. Richter of Late to Dinner fame, written by Earl McRotch, which sounds like a fake name. That sounds like a Bart Simpson phone call. Earl McRotch. Earl McRotch. Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai. John Lithgow as Dr. Lizardo, a.k.a. Lord Horfin. Ellen Barkin as Penny Pretty. Jeff Goldblum as New Jersey. Christopher Lloyd as John Big Booty. Clancy Brown as Rawhide. And Carl Lumley as John Parker. This season 10 of I Have Some Notes has been the season of accidentally having the same actor on one or two movies apart. because he's in Brave New World.
Yep, Carl Lumbly making a return this season.
Yeah, and Clancy Brown was in John Wick 4.
He was. You're right.
Jeez, he was in it yeah, right. He was in the last movie we did.
Wow. We were talking about maybe doing a RoboCop at some point, so Peter Weller might make a return.
I was going to say, there was this interesting different approaches to tone throughout this movie. Like, it was tonally all over the place. Where you had John Lithgow just being over the top. If you told me that Steve Carell took his inspiration for Gru in Despicable Me from John Lithgow in this movie, I would totally believe you, because he sounds the same with this vague sort of Italian accent, sort of, sometimes.
Don't say
and going
vague.
Well, it just wandered. Like, it depended what scene. Clearly, these were different days that they filmed. But John Lithgow was just out of his head, just wild swings. And then you had Peter Weller, who's treating this role as deadly as a gunshot wound. Just I'm really this guy. I gotta have this serious kind of thing. And then Lithgow is just frantic energy and everything is wild.
Yeah.
One of the other things that's interesting about the point in time that this movie came out is that a lot of these actors nowadays were like, oh, Peter Weller, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd. These are people who we know. Most of them were not big names at this time. They didn't land any big names for this movie at the time. It's only much later now that we look back and go, this is a star-studded cast.
Hey, that's the youngest I've ever seen Jeff Goldblum in something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a year before Back to the Future came out for Christopher Lloyd. Oh,
really? Only a year? Wow. This is also the youngest I've seen Clancy Brown, because I think previous to this, the youngest I've seen him is in Highlander, and he looks very different in that. This, he's because he looks like a scary monster in Highlander, and here he's a total hunk show.
There are a lot of handsome boys.
With the name,
a lot of handsome boys in this movie.
A lot of slutty boys.
A lot of boys where I was like, yeah, hello.
Hello. Yes. I'm here.
You can
and
unbutton
Clancy
a few
Brown's
more buttons
character's
on that.
name was Rawhide.
The names in this movie, again, very Venture Brothers, very just big swings. The fact that there's a guy named Perfect Tommy, Penny Pretty, Dr. Lizardo, Yo-Yo Dine Industries, Buckaroo Banzai and the Hong Kong Cavaliers is the best band name ever. And I'm a fan of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I would still put Buckaroo Banzai above that, because it just, it's so good. And the bus that says Hong Kong Cavaliers on the outside of it, not an Asian guy in the group. It's
No.
Well, Peter Weller is supposed to be half Japanese.
Yep.
And then they gave him
Hong Kong
the most American. Yeah, I know. But the fact that it's Buckaroo is the most American name you can have, and Banzai is the most Japanese name, and just there you go, that's a character, I guess.
Yep.
Incredible. Much is going to be discussed over the next hour about how bonkers, off the wall, gonzo the plot of this movie is. So let's go to the trailer and the plot summary in case you haven't seen this treasure of a film. We'll catch you up.
He's a rocker. Doctor.
Don't tug on that. You never know what it might be attached to.
Inventor.
Activate oscillator.
He's broken the sound barrier. Philosopher.
No matter where you go, there you are.
Buckaroo Banzai is just your run-of-the-mill neurosurgeon with a #1 band, comic book series, and an interdimensional Ford F-350. Pretty standard stuff. So when Buckaroo drives his jet-powered truck through a mountain, he naturally discovers an alien organism that has hitched a ride from the 8th dimension. Obviously. Predictably, Buckaroo has an arch-nemesis who pioneered interdimensional travel with the use of a, say it with me,
Oscillation overthruster.
While testing his prototype, Dr. Emilio Lizardo became stuck between dimensions and driven violently mad by the red Lectroids who dwell within the nexus of realities. Lizardo now plots to steal the overthruster. I'm sure you all know what happens next. That's right, Buckaroo's band, the Hong Kong Cavaliers, perform at a nightclub and sing a special song to the suicidal identical twin of Banzai's late wife. Buckaroo then holds a press conference about his truck ventures that is interrupted by a phone call that gives him electrical powers that lets him see aliens in disguise. This is really paint by numbers stuff. The aliens briefly kidnap Hikata, Banzai's scientific mentor, but the Cavaliers come to the rescue. They next meet John Parker, a messenger from John Emdal, who leads the peaceful black Lectroids of, you guessed it, Planet 10. And of course, Emdal explains her people banished the red Lectroids to the eighth dimension. Lizardo's overthruster experiment allowed the Red's tyrannical leader, Lord John Warfin, to possess the Doctor's mind and enable their escape. Blah, blah, blah. Black Lectroids threaten to trigger World War III if Banzai can't stop the red Lectroids from acquiring his perfected overthruster. Can Banzai and the Cavaliers save the day? Will we ever learn why there's a watermelon there? Tune in next time as he returns for the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League. Fun fact, they wrote a novel that is the sequel to this, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Against the World Crime League.
Incredible. Novel might be a better medium.
Yeah. I agreed. The sequel baiting at the end, I think in any other movie would have felt like such an overreach, but it's just such a part of the pastiche of the whole film that is, it's great.
Yeah.
Like, this movie feels like it's already the fifth movie in the series. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that they set out to do that deliberately is incredibly charming, and I think overall they succeeded. I think I think it also becomes their Achilles heel, but we'll talk about that in my fixes at least. I want to right off the top talk about something I loved, especially for the era it came out. The way they visualized traveling through into the eighth dimension and then out the other side of the mountain in the opening scene, I adored. It looked cool. I bought it. It didn't seem to strain the technological limitations of filmmaking at the time. Like they were punching within their weight class, and it looked sick as hell. And because I've got my fellow slug blasters here, that really it was nice to think about what does interdimensional travel look like, especially when we only really have the three dimensions to perceive in our own world. And so, as a slug blaster guy, that was a nice touch that was very affirming.
I loved that sequence. So exciting. Desperately want more of it in the movie. They go into the eighth dimension 1.5 times, and that's a crime anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they can't spend a lot of time there. Otherwise, it'll make you go crazy. Like, that's the whole thing. You can't stay there. You'll turn into John Lithgow.
And that's a bad thing?
I could have used more John Lithgow. That is true.
Yeah.
Leah, when you say that you're trying to visualize what the crossing over into the eighth dimension feels like, it reminds me of when I tried to read Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, and there's like there's a diagram of what dimensions look like beyond the third dimension, and they're just like depicted as like these series of like several tubes over and over again. I'm like, this is no help. I'm not more well informed.
Okay, we might be getting a little off topic, but if you would like the best visualization of how you would perceive, in this case, a fourth dimension, Carl Sagan has an excellent video that was part of Cosmos. You can look it up on YouTube, where he is like, instead of getting you to try to picture a dimension that is beyond our mortal minds, gets you to imagine what a two-dimensional plane would look like. And it's fairly straightforward of like, oh, you can go forward, backward, left, right. There's no up, there's no down, there's just forward, backward, left, right. Sure. But then it's like, but then what would it look like if something from the third dimension entered? And he describes like an apple coming into the flat plane, and you would just see it as segments, almost like I don't know, but not a CAT scan. I mean, you see visualization of a brain scan. It like starts at the top and you just sort of see it come down. A three-dimensional object like an apple passing through a two-dimensional plane, you would just see these like individual 2D segments. And then he's like, so, you know, you're a two-dimensional guy, you see this apple. Well, imagine you're a three-dimensional guy. You are. What would something coming through a fourth dimension look like? And that's why Stephen Hawking has those weird tubes, because he's trying to,
There's a great episode of Star Trek TNG where they get trapped by two-dimensional aliens. I highly recommend that episode.
Yeah, we're barely qualified to talk about movies in a scholarly fashion. I probably should be trying to explain quantum physics, but
well, we do know if you go to the 8th dimension, there are going to be weird flying ghost babies that will leave stuff on your vehicle.
Those were red
Little brain
lectroids he was
slugs.
passing by because they're trapped there. Remember?
No. This movie. No. This movie had so many open threads. You don't know what was important or not. Like, it starts off with like Buckaroo is doing surgery, and he's like apparently this revolutionary surgery that allows the person to be able to audibly kind of like move their hand and all this kind of stuff. Wow, this sounds great. This is an amazing thing. We're definitely going to see this later in the movie. No, that was it. That was the only time we heard about it. And it was like, that sounded like it was a major thing. And that happens. The whole movie is just like,
Yep.
The whole time is like, and this other incredible thing, which we never see again.
It's a Tuesday for Buckaroo Banzai. Like,
What I was tripped up on is like spatially, where was Buckaroo Banzai when he was performing that surgery? Because he goes right into his truck right after, and I noticed briefly there was a shot that included an ambulance, and I was like, was he performing the surgery in the ambulance? Is that what was happening?
Where surgeries happen,
Which
you
seems
know.
right.
That was for me a big problem with the movie overall. I described it as wildly disorienting. It was very, very difficult at any given moment to know where we were, where we had come from, and where we were going. Very, very difficult to sort of grok. And like, to be fair, you know, I had trouble putting my baby down that night. So we started at 9 when we maybe wanted to start at like 8 or 8:30. So we were not going into this movie with the best headspace, but still, it very much did not help.
I mean, what you're describing is my fix. I'll just spit it out now. A lot of people complain about this plot being kind of inscrutable. And it's definitely challenging. There's lots of things that you can't tell. Is this an important plot detail to this story, or is this a random watermelon that's meant to establish an interconnected continuity that doesn't exist? And that's fun, but it can cause a little confusion. And I think that confusion is okay. It's what makes Invincible work. It's what makes Venture Brothers work. But then the editing needs to be tight as hell. Insert shots that make you understand which items are important and which ones are funny set dressing that are references to things that didn't exist. Why is Jeff Goldblum wearing a full cowboy outfit? It doesn't matter. Who's holding the oscillator right now does matter. And both you can't really place. And that's my big fix for this movie was you lose so much in sloppy editing, and it's already asking a lot of you continuity-wise. So, yeah.
Do you guys remember Magic Eye? The Magic Eye posters?
Yep.
Yes.
So, have you ever stared at a Magic Eye poster for like 10 minutes and then just given up? Mm-hmm. Because that was my experience with this movie. There was, you know, all sorts of plot noise going on, and I was desperately trying to relax my eyes enough to take it all in, and let it come into focus. And then at some point I was just like, there's too much, and I give up. And the charm of the weirdness started to wear off, and my attention started to drift away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anita
it
had
falls apart in the third act.
Anita had kind of the opposite. She started out puzzled by the movie and its inscrutability. And about a third of the way in, it kind of like clicked for her. And she was on board the roller coaster at that point. And she had a blast for the last like 2/3 of the movie. And she has since gone on record saying she loved it. She'd like to watch it in a double feature with Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, sure.
and I get it. And I had seen it before. This was her first time. So it was nice kind of vicariously getting to be with someone experiencing it for the first time again and enjoying it as much as I did the first time, I feel.
Any other specific details we liked? Any other praise we want to heap, or can we get into kind of poking this thing? Because it's not perfect.
I really love the supporting cast around Buckaroo Banzai, and I love the relationship he has with everybody, because Buckaroo Banzai is the most famous person in the world. He is a super genius rock star scientist. Everybody knows his name. At one point, he steals a motorcycle, and the blue-collar workers at the motorcycle company recognize him on sight. He's a famous scientist. The blue-collar laborers are like, it's Buckaroo Banzai. And yet, he treats everyone like super cool. Like, he's just the nicest guy. He treats everyone as an equal. He respects their input. And I kind of like that about him, that he's this super chill dude, as well as being the most famous and capable person in the world. Like, a kid and his dad help him out, and he's like, you're part of the team now. Let's go. Like, it's perfect. Yeah. It's great. I love that. And I
forgot about the blue laser brigade or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Hang on. I got to look it up. But yeah, the fact that he's not only does he have the Hong Kong Cavaliers, but he's also got this like network of ham radio families willing to drop what they're doing and come help him.
Yeah. Because he's Buckaroo Banzai. And he's
with
on
a
an
helicopter,
adventure.
yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me. Like, there's no part of his character that doesn't just make perfect sense to me.
The Blue Blaze Irregulars is the name of the civilian paramilitary you can call it anytime.
Oh my god. Yeah, the more they leaned into the gonzo elements, the more I enjoyed the movie. I also want to shout out the naming convention of the Red Lectroids. John, stupid last name. Perfect. The fact that you got to say John Big Booty many times. I live. I also wrote down, some of the dialogue was delightful. And the line that, charmed me to the point that I wrote it down was, where are we going? Planet 10. When? Real soon.
Very inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the line, feet, do your stuff, as he's controlling the spaceship with his feet for some reason.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That's clearly how Red Lectroids run their starships. It makes perfect sense.
Obviously.
I love the giant chairs that the black Lectroids were sitting on. Those are great.
Yeah.
There's
the two details I liked in particular was when they were at the music concert or whatever in that random basement. There was one guy who was playing two saxophones at the same time.
Yep.
That was great. No notes there. Whatever changes we are going to do this movie, they need to keep that sign. They go into this one door that says, nobody comes in here, and they spelt nobody as Nobudy and comes as CUMZ. Perfect. Do not, that sign needs to stay.
It needs to be more obvious what's on the other side of that door, but the door was perfect.
Yes, that's right.
Here's a little fun fact that Greg will definitely appreciate. The art department for Buckaroo Banzai is the same art department that worked on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, wow.
And Deep Space Nine and Voyager. They share a lot of DNA. And so the Star Trek art department kept slipping in Buckaroo Banzai references into Star Trek. And that includes Yo-Yo Industries canonically existing in the Star Trek universe as a like manufacturer of propulsion systems.
Nice.
It's stuff like that I live for, and it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, the art in this is sick, and I invited the Slug Blaster guys on because of the eighth dimension, as the title promises. But there's also a giant wet slug in this. At some point, Penny Pretty is pinned down, and they put like a slow moving slug puppet going towards her face in a real like, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die kind of like moment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this movie even has wet slugs. This is the most Slug Blaster coded movie. Yes, I'm also, I wanted to find a reason to promote the upcoming season 3 of Quantum Kickflip, but we got this and an opportunity to promote it. It worked out well. But yeah, if you like Buckaroo Banzai, a lot of these the elements of it come into play in Quantum Kickflip. Basically swap the brain surgeon samurai engineer for teens on hoverboards. And that's what we do. Well, that's Slug Blaster.
A pitch for our season 3 crew name is the Hong Kong Cavaliers.
Don't tempt me with a good time. In fact, we're coming up on the halfway point. We're going to fix this thing on the other side of the break, but why don't we hear a trailer for season 3 of Quantum Kickflip?
In the ghost town of Boron Ridge, an interdimensional boarding school houses delinquent students from all over the multiverse. The rules are strict. The campus is isolated. The students are forbidden from sneaking into other dimensions, but they do it anyway. This is Slug Blaster.
I heard that you might be interested in slug blasting. I would love to be able to have you on my team. I'm one of the best slug blasters in the school. I have a ton of experience. I've been to so many dimensions.
Esther Infinity, Slug Blaster documentarian extraordinaire.
I am running for prom queen. Can I count on your vote?
I'm flattered, but lots of people just call me Bub or Bubby if they're close.
It's time to
Let's
play the
play
game.
Slug
It's
Blast.
time to play Slug Blaster. Ready to play some Slug Blaster?
Quantum Kickflip. Season 3 premieres Wednesday, June 4th.
Welcome back to I Have Some Notes. We're talking the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. Let's fix this cult classic.
The beauty of a good, cult classic is that they become cult classics because they weren't super successful in their day because they're flawed, and people grow to love them in many ways because of their flaws. So on the one hand, that makes this a flawed movie worth fixing. And on the other hand, it's very hard to fix it without taking out those charming things that the little nicks and dents and scratches that make it so wonderful. So that's why this is going to be a challenging one.
That is definitely something that I have been really, really trying to keep in mind as I approach fixes to this movie is I don't want to scrub away everything that does make it charming, that does give it its rough edges. I want to make sure that I'm giving meaningful fixes that will make it a good movie. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to make it a polished movie, you know?
Good but not polished. That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
I think that's where the challenge is it's a highly entertaining movie with all of these weird parts in it. And to do normal movie fixes for this would actually make it less entertaining, arguably. So I'm that's why my fixes kind of go in a different direction that I think probably. I guess I can start with mine.
Go for it. Go for it.
Sure.
So first of all, this is my more normal note. I would say crank up the melodrama. Instead of making this more of a normal movie, go the other way with it and make it weirder. And
gotta be gonzo, baby.
You gotta be wild. So as an example of what you could possibly do is the example of when Rawhide dies in it, and he's shot and he's just kind of there, and they have that kind of personal moment. Oh, this is so sad. How I would change it is he is shot multiple times, 20 times, just bleeding. And they have some sort of dialogue going back and forth where it's just is it bad, Buckaroo? We'll get you patched up right as rain. Don't you worry. And then they just like ugly cry as he's trying to hold it in as his buddy's dying, kind of thing. Like
minutes
that's
need to
what
be
you
added
do.
to this death scene. Many minutes.
Yeah, like you just got to go harder on all of that melodrama, and I think that would make it just that. Yeah, this is a wild movie. Let's just go with it. That's how you fix it. I think is to make it weirder.
You know what's even better than that is for him to die and then just be better later on in the movie as well.
He shows up. Shows up just.
I think he's in the sequel novel. I think he just gets better.
Perfect.
I'll go better.
The notes about him getting shot 20 times should stay. But he does get better.
My weirder change is I would reframe the entire movie. And what I mean by that is that this is going to require some scripting. The best part about this note is you could do it today in 2025. What you do is you get all of the living actors, Peter Weller, Clancy Brown, whoever is around, and you shoot these like behind the scenes interviews and you script them, obviously. And I'm basically proposing we make Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, where they think that they're making the greatest movie of all time. And, you're seeing John Lithgow, like, how does he get into the mind frame? And so you get to that scene where, he sees into the eighth dimension. He's pulled out. They cut away to an interview with John Lithgow, and he's like serious as he's going like, I was trying to get into the mind frame of what it would be like to be in the eighth dimension. That's why I took, a bunch of Percocet and stayed up for 8 days in a row and plunged my head into an ice bath. And then I was ready to go. You just make it this wild kind of thing that they think they're making the masterpiece of the movie. They don't have a question about it. And you just splice those throughout the movie. And then it would do that thing because I felt really confused. I'm like, do they know that they're making a bad movie? Is that the bit? And like, it was not clear. And this would clarify that. It's just like, oh yeah, to enjoy this movie, this is ridiculous. And I feel it would kind of like get more people on board with how wild it is. That would be my like wild pitch because it also does kind of shift the movie quite a bit, but I think it would kind of solve some of the weird experience with it.
I do think you're right because I hadn't thought of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place until you brought it up. But yeah, the clips we see in Dark Place of the show that they made are the kind of batshit nonsense that this movie like lives and dies on. And so yeah, you could have like a fan edit or something where you suck some more life out of this by completely recontextualizing it. No, I dig that.
You could, you call it a deluxe edition or whatever, and so you can get like a whatever it is. You can watch it normally, or you can watch with as I said, you can get Peter Weller today to do it and just fill in all those things. I think it'd be a fun way of doing it.
If you're going super meta with it, I would add in that they would also have to talk about previous movies in the Buckaroo Banzai canon that they clearly were in that you obviously have seen, but which don't exist. Yeah. Like, in the third movie, you'll remember, of course, I was wearing a black tuxedo for most of the movie. So we wanted to go something different this time.
You don't even have to do this as a reframe of the movie. There's a bunch of documentaries about the making of great movies. I mean, there's one coming out for the Goofy movie. There's a documentary about the making of the Goofy movie coming out this year. You could just make the making of Buckaroo Banzai mockumentary. Yeah. And it would play like Dark Place, but you were sort of pitching it as like pepper these scenes into this movie. And it's more like, no, just make a nonsensical behind the scenes doc. Yeah.
What better way to bring the group back together after 40 years?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so funny too. Cause anyone who sits down to this movie has obviously never heard of Buckaroo Banzai because it's not a real property. But also then if I got stuck. The Sparks documentary kind of plays on this. If you were to make a documentary about this movie that everyone loves, that has this long legacy, And everyone's like, it's been 40 years since the first time we went to the 8th dimension, and like really like hammed it up about what a legacy this movie was. And they're talking about all the other movies that surround it, its cultural impact, like, you know, Chinese knockoff Buckaroo Banzai t-shirts, like Simpsons merch, and like, yeah. Oh, that's very good.
I love that so far our fix for this movie is don't change the movie, just add to it in a metatextual way.
Recontextualize.
Go wilder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but the Sparks documentary, they sort of play that up a bit, because it's like the Sparks is a real band, but you watch this trailer and you're like, is this a joke? I've never heard his band in my life. And that's part of the charm of the documentary, is they're like, we know you haven't really heard of them, but they've been around for 40 years and they're super influential. Yeah. Cool. Dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Laena, do you have any notes?
I do, yes. I kind of have 3. Sure. One is a technical note, one is a narrative note, and one is not my note.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the one that's not mine. It is Robin's, my husband, and it relates to Penny Pretty, because I kind of hated everything to do with Penny Pretty, to be completely honest with you. 80s movies have a hard time doing right by women, and this is no exception. Mm-hmm. She cries, she tries to kill herself, she's basically put on suicide watch by Buckaroo Banzai, and then the way they fall in love with each other just kind of yucked me out the whole time, and it felt like she didn't have a lot of agency or anything to do. And then, of course, she was kidnapped and killed, but not really. She was revived by a kiss.
Yeah, revived by a kiss. Pretty hacky.
Yeah, didn't like any of it. Robin's pitch for fixing what to do with her character was to make her a reporter. That since Buckaroo Banzai perfected the oscillator overthruster, she's following him to get the exclusive scoop on everything and follow him throughout.
She's his Vicky Vale or his April O'Neil. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like that would like give her as a character more to do. It would make her more interesting as a character. 100% you can keep she's the identical twin sister of his late wife. Maybe he's really cold to her throughout the whole thing. And then maybe later on his own, he pulls out a picture and it's a picture of her. And what? Did he know her before? Do they have a history? But then later she discovers that and then is like, wait, what the heck is going on? Part of her investigation, she finds that picture, cause that's gonzo, so you have to keep it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really liked the pitch that Robin had for giving more for Penny Pretty to do. Yeah.
Can I add on to that a little bit?
100%.
There's only 2 women in this movie, Penny Pretty and John Emmel. The boss, the good guy boss
yes.
alien.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of like tertiary women who are like, you should be sensible. And everyone's like, no.
Yeah, like named characters with stuff to do. Yeah. I don't think you should cut any members of the Hong Kong Cavaliers. It's funny that he's got like 9 friends plus the Blue Blazing Regulars. Like, it's great. The fact that there's too many characters is very funny. Some of them could be women. Of the 13 superfluous characters could just like
half of them can easily be women.
Reno, Nevada should have just been a woman.
Reno, Nevada could have been a woman. Very easily, yes.
Easily.
Perfect Tommy, perfect Tammy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Laena, I do think you are right with that note. I do hope that we can still keep the scene at the music concert where Buckaroo still does somehow sense that she's crying.
Yeah.
Somehow, and even though he can't see her, hear her, or anything, yes, he uses like the force or whatever.
In a dark, loud club. In a dark, loud club where he is in the middle of a rock concert and he is playing a horn, he hears her crying out in the dark.
And in this version, she sets it up and she's like, you are as good as they say.
Oh, she's connecting to the music. Yes. Not so much that she's suicidal. Yeah. That's, That is a good step. Although we do need them to stop the concert so that he can interview this random woman in the crowd. Like I think that also needs to stay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But everything else, I agree with your changes.
Yeah. As far as my other fixes for this movie, from like a technical perspective, one of my biggest challenges with this movie was just figuring out what was going on and where it was happening. It didn't help that when there were action sequences, they were pretty poorly choreographed. Mm-hmm. At one point, I think two people's heads were supposed to be smashed together, and they were just kind of lightly bumped against each other, and then they went, la, la, la. I have a friend, a very dear friend, who is obsessed with 80s kung fu action comedies. And for a while we lived together, and when we did, he showed me some of these, Project A, Wheels on Meals, Dragons Forever. And I think that Golden Harvest Productions, the company behind these powerhouse movies, should have a say in Buckaroo Banzai. They are just I watched these movies and had a delightful time. My friend knows that I've studied some like theatrical combat and stuff. And the way that their fights tell stories, explore the space in a crystal clear way, tell jokes, deepen these characters. It's so fun and so incredible. And I think if some of that was influencing Buckaroo Banzai, it would add a ton of clarity to what is happening in the scenes. And by default, you have to, because part of the beauty of it is it shows everything. Like, every move is so clear. There's no cutting. It's not like you throw the punch and then in the next cut they receive the punch. It's all laid out for you. So the set is so clear as well. So y'all watch some 80s Hong Kong kung fu movies. And I feel like that would just like extremely heighten Buckaroo Banzai for me.
Agreed, and that is a much more eloquent way to say one of my notes. Different means
you mentioned
same
the editing,
end.
yeah.
Well, not just so the editing of like. Well, I'll get to that part. You touched on that too, but I want to elaborate on that a bit. Just the martial arts of it all. He's a brain surgeon. We see him do a little brain surgery. He's a rock star. We see him do a little rock and roll. Those two skills never really come up later in the movie. Like, he doesn't solve a problem with rock and roll or brain surgery. Would have been nice to have. Fine. He is a martial arts guy. He is a samurai. And there's all of the fight scenes. There's no martial arts. There's a scene, the first time he squares off with one of the Electroids, he like kicks him in the dick and runs away.
Yeah.
Like, and then when they are throwing hands in the big fight scene, they're just punching each other like a Bond movie at best. And I'm like, I thought this guy was a martial arts master. So it would have been nice if
he has a sword
and a samurai sword.
Yeah.
So would have been nice if brain surgery or rock and roll came back at least once, but definitely have martial arts in the fight scenes. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be like Jackie Chan versus Benny the Jet levels of incredible. It can be campy and like pretty fake, but like, a step up, between, Jackie Chan, Benny and Buckaroo Banzai. I think there's a middle ground we can find.
Sure. And I think that it would definitely add, it's something that you can add to the movie that is, in addition to its flair, right? Like, it wouldn't necessarily take away from the weirdness of everything or whatever. It would just be another accent to its attitude, which I do like. I remember saying a couple times to Aaron when, of the editing that, after there would be a terrible edit, I'd be like, I'm not even sure what they meant for us to understand what happened there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem with that, and this is the I already touched on in the first part, but what I wanted to elaborate on is it's why I think as much as I love this movie, I checked out in the finale. A lot of people had a hard time in that finale, and in the third act especially, because there's no continuity. You don't know where people are in relations to things. There's no tension. You don't know how far away someone is before the thing goes. So there's no ticking clock. There's no dramatic irony. At one point in the climax, two of the Cavaliers run into each other because they're running opposite directions down a hallway and bump into each other. And it's like, yeah, man, I didn't know where you guys were either. Like all three of us bumped into each other. And it completely diffuses the tension, especially because so much of this movie is they want you to take in these details like the watermelon and Jeff Goldblum's outfit and not question it. Then the stuff that does need to be there for the story has to be ironclad. And unfortunately even though the problem is the editing, the plot takes all the heat. As you read reviews, you talk to people, they're like, this plot is inscrutable. It doesn't make any sense. The plot actually makes just fine sense. It's just hard to follow because it's edited so badly. It's not any more complicated than a Doctor Who episode. Like, they gotta get the MacGuffin, they gotta get the damsel before the bad guys do their plan. It's not rocket science. No pun intended. Like,
I think the reason why it feels so convoluted is something that Dave alluded to earlier, which is that there's so many loose threads, and that's peppered throughout the entire movie. So while the actual thrust of the plot is pretty straightforward, it's just chopped up by all this other stuff, and then it does give you the perception that, like, I don't really understand what's going on.
You don't know what's important.
Yeah.
Because it's just like there's so many things that seem like they should be important, but they aren't. Yeah.
Sure. I guess what I'm saying is that's okay. I like that you're not sure what plot elements are supposed to be important, but the problem isn't that the plot has too many elements and you don't know what's important. It's that the editing doesn't focus your attention on what is, so that you know you're not supposed to sweat why Jeff Goldblum's wearing a cowboy hat.
I guess,
so
but
they don't get to have all these nonsense plot threads that are essentially set dressing because they don't earn the stuff that matters by showing it to you in a way that has continuity and intention and focus.
Right. But like when you do that, if like a more competently edited version of Buckaroo Banzai would, inherently have a better hierarchy of those story beats because it's more complicated, more competently edited.
Yes.
Like all those decisions would basically, you're going to make those decisions in order to highlight the things that are important and disregard the stuff that isn't, right? Yeah. So that the watermelon thing, just as an example, would feel much more like a one-off than it does, because it feels like, because it should be just a joke, right? Mm-hmm. But it feels like it's going to come back. And it doesn't,
Sure.
like,
or a better example would be the, why is the president strapped into a weird spinning
right?
bed?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I'm saying, we're saying the same thing, but I think this is what I was trying to say. What you're describing though, the plot takes the heat for it. The plot becomes the one you blame. And I don't think it's the plot to blame. It's the editing, and you can have a nonsense plot if everything's tight.
I kind of like,
maybe we're saying the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah. And I kind of like a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning where it's like, why is the president in traction? Why is there a watermelon? And the implication that it's a callback to something that we just don't have the context for. And I almost kind of want more of that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you can.
But you're absolutely right. You can have a frayed tapestry with tons of loose threads hanging off of it, so long as you're still getting a picture in the middle of it. And
that's a great way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause to me, like what this movie kind of feels like is if you went into iTunes and just did like your did a flat EQ of everything, like there's no variation. Every element feels like it has the exact same importance, rather than some things being lifted up and some things being de-elevated. I don't know. Like maybe I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just kind of how I feel about how every scene is presented.
Totally. I did have a note about the plot. My favorite sequence in the whole movie was when Buckaroo Banzai drove through a mountain and into the 8th dimension. I was fully on board for their scientific jargon for why that worked and what the 8th dimension even was. And then John Lithgow kind of goes halfway into it and is driven mad. And then we never go in there again, and it made me mad. It's in the title. It's the coolest part of the movie. I want more of it. And I think the thing that makes it make more sense is, like, in the movie, the red lectroids are trapped. And so you don't want to go into the 8th dimension because you will free the red lectroids. We see the problem here. The plot of the movie is we don't want to go to the cool place. I think it should switch, and the red lectroids are on the outside in outer space, and the black lectroids, the good aliens, are the ones who are trapped in the 8th dimension. And when Buckaroo Banzai breaks in, one of them manages to break out and says, "You need to help me get the rest of them out of there."
There's John Parker.
And then John Lithgow comes in from outer space or whatever and is like, "I'm going to sneak in while you sneak in." And now it's a race to see who gets to John Emdahl first.
Right.
And then we get to spend more time in the cool place because the plot, the main crux of the movie is we want to go to the cool place instead of, no, we don't want to go to the cool place.
Right. Yeah.
And that works perfectly fine as well, because like the red lectroids don't control the Earth. They're just showing up because they've detected a breach into the 8th dimension and they don't want the black lectroids to get out. John Parker still shows up and is helping Buckaroo out. And you can still have the first 2/3 of the movie, the Act 1 and Act 2 still take place on Earth, so long as in Act 3 we get a big set piece in the 8th dimension. And that's where the big spaceship battle can happen.
Yes.
Sick.
That's a really good note.
Thank you.
I don't have a note so much as just an observation, but I would not put it past the current Secretary of Defense to act like that. He's like making deals with children and like being a full-blown scumbag, and I'm like, that is, yep, he would do. I forget that he did. There was something specific he did where I'm like, that isn't the kind of like corrupt, underhanded bullshit that like I would not put past this current administration. So
it's weird that he also does that all by himself too. Like, why doesn't he have like soldiers with him? It's just this old man running around in this like dangerous place just by himself.
It's just a funny thing. I want to circle back to Laena's whole plot thing, because my brain just exploded with ideas. It totally works in reverse, because then in Act 1, the oscillator gets stolen from them right away, and they spend all of Act 2, instead of the red lectroids trying to get the oscillator from them, it's them trying to get it back from Yo-Yodyne, where it was taken, because the red lectroids have a base on Earth, because this is where the dimensional vortex is weakest or whatever. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like, the whole movie fell into place the moment you suggested this. And it's already a better movie in my mind.
Yay.
Great. Perfect fix. It totally fixes the third part of the movie.
Nice. Any other fixes?
I don't know that this is a fix, but I was trying to think of movies that carry you from one very weird concept to another very weird concept, and trying to think of any movie that might have done it better. And the best I could land on was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And the two things that make it work are the narrator holding your hand through all the strange stuff that's going on. And of course, Arthur Dent himself, who's the fish out of water character. And I kind of feel like maybe Buckaroo Banzai could have used a fish out of water character, and maybe that could have been, what's her name? Penny Pretty. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
New Jersey's a good bet for that, but he's also eccentric and weird and a super genius.
Yeah.
Penny Pretty, especially if reimagined as our April O'Neil character, makes for a great character, a great audience surrogate in that case, because she's the reporter coming into Buckaroo's world. So she can be the one to ask the questions and have things explained to her. And in that way, we get our little handheld through the adventure. It works.
Yeah, this gets compared to Doctor Who a lot because the plot of the movie is a very Doctor Who plot, right down to like the War of the Worlds was real, actually. And there's a reason Doctor Who has.
We haven't even mentioned that part yet.
The reason Doctor Who works is because he's always got a human companion who can be like, "What's this? Why is this?" And so to do a Doctor Who story with no companion, it's like it's gonna miss that.
I feel like on some level, Penny was meant to be that in this movie, and they just didn't quite land it. They didn't go far enough, and they kind of leaned into turning her more into a damsel and less of an audience.
Yeah, she's sidelined for so much of the movie, and for a lot. I mean, for most of the opening expositions, she's not even there. So, we're just thrown into neurosurgery and trans-dimensional trucks and all this stuff before we ever get someone who hasn't met Buckaroo Banzai before, you know?
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought, I don't know, maybe this won't work comedically, but I thought for a second that it might be funny if the narrator was the straight man and that he didn't understand the history of Buckaroo Banzai either, and that he was trying to narrate the movie even like as if he's supposed to understand, but he doesn't. I don't know. Like that was a thought I had. I think maybe it's dumb, but I just thought just because the movie has this confidence, it would be funny to have a narrator who doesn't have the confidence.
I like that idea, but I think a more of a hitchhiker style narrator who's holding your hands through some of it.
Yeah.
Especially if it was just like, I mean, I'd like, without keep beating this horse, I just like the editing to be better. But in lieu of that, you could have someone who sort of delivers lines like, as seen in the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai in the case of the missing mole people, can like lampshade the fact that there are these canonical non sequiturs a little better than just having someone be like, ask me about the watermelon later.
Almost like footnotes in the comic book version.
Yeah.
Or something.
But he's still sort of talking like the Stephen Fry in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like, I'm gonna explain this to you and you know what it is. Like almost we sort of do it in our trailer summary here as a joke, but like, if the narrator was like, and obviously you understand that when matter vibrates, it can go through the empty spaces. And we all know electroids come from planet 10. Like, kind of lampshade it that way instead of it being like, and planet 10, who wrote this shit?
I think conceptually, like, if you have a fish out of water character, you don't really need a narrator. It would be kind of like an either or type of thing, but yeah.
Incredible. Well, I think we've definitely fixed it without polishing it, as Laena set out. So, very, very cool. Thank you guys for working that one. We said it was hard mode, but that felt easy. I know I feel the same way. It's an inspiring movie. It welcomes discussion and creativity and head scratching befuddlement.
Yeah.
We also have some listener comments. Thank you to everyone who contributed the listener comments. We still list these on social media and over in our Discord. So if you have thoughts on the movie, follow us in those places and we'll read your comments on air.
This was a divisive movie on the Discord too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Taylor says,
got really mad at Dave. Sorry.
Sorry. We really, surprised Dave with this one, and he had to come in and be like, what the hell are you people talking about?
It was. I went through an existential crisis at first.
Robin Taylor says, let's set up what makes Buckaroo a classic. Structurally, it's serial, referencing events and relationships that happen in previous films we have never seen. Our lead is a brain surgeon, PhD physicist, and global rock star who spouts philosophy faced with the reality that his experiment has opened a door to a different dimension. The cast is amazing, and the script by the original writer of Big Trouble in Little China. Buckaroo is a big weird swing of an original idea executed as weird but straight as possible. There was hopes it would be a franchise, but not to be.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it in the Discord, but this is a movie that's just not made anymore. And certainly not something that would get a proper theatrical release. Like you make something this weird now and you're going to end up on like, I don't know, Hulu or Nebula or something. I don't know.
I actually disagree. I think it's just they didn't understand the power, much like Buckaroo and his mentor. They didn't understand the technology they were playing with. Because I would argue that James Gunn gets how to do this. You watch the Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy, even just the trailer to the Superman movie coming up. He's showing you, let's use the Suicide Squad, for example, like all of these characters in the opening that you don't know who they are. You don't know why there's a weird weasel guy. You don't know why Nathan Fillion's arms come off. And eventually, it focuses in because you realize they don't matter. These characters matter. And then you see a giant Starro, like the fact that he brought Starro to the big screen and you're able to track what it is. Mm-hmm. So I actually think people have more of an appetite for this kind of stuff. And I know I've said it 3 times now, but Invincible, if anyone's watching Invincible, it kind of works the same way where like guys just show up and you know what their deal is based on the first thing they say, their name and their outfit. And we've just got this like language of fantasy and sci-fi already cooked in from years of Marvel movies and just bigger stuff that it's not weird that there's now a cat guy with a battle axe fighting a magic guy in this superhero show. It's Invincible. Of course there's a cat guy fighting a magic man. So I disagree.
To be clear, I'm not saying that a movie like this couldn't work. What I'm saying is that there's not going to be the investment dollars for such a thing. And in the case of a lot of studios, like A24 being maybe the exception, like there's most of these types of things get noted to the point where they don't have any, they lose their original uniqueness in that process.
Sure, but Hawkgirl and Metamorpho are in the new Superman trailer. Like I don't think it's that. Yeah, I don't know. I think they do get made. It just looks different.
Yeah, the modern version of it is it does have to rely on IP. I was thinking that this movie did remind me of almost like a proto version of Guardians of the Galaxy to a degree, because it's very in its tone and approach and all that kind of stuff. But the reason Guardians of the Galaxy could be made in this very strange movie is because it's it's a part of the MCU. So it's got the studio would be willing to invest in it. Sure. But I think, to Greg's point, is I don't know if you can just we just came up with a brand new IP that's never been explored at all, and we're going to pretend like it is a thing. You know what I mean? That would be a hard swing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's an episode of Venture Brothers called "Escape from the House of Mummies Part 2," and you never see Part 1, and that would be a hard sell for a blockbuster movie. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Bogoload says, I think any changes you make to the movie fundamentally make it not what it is. And it's a movie that needs to be exactly the kind of mess it is. I mean, we were even saying
it hard in the Discord.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. That's part of what cult movies are, is that they you start fiddling with it and it takes out the cultness of it. It's, I don't disagree with that. Like they're just gems that speak to people for very particular reasons, and that's totally okay. But it is fun to examine them all the same.
Oh yeah. I think that's why my notes were more focused on like, let's make it more culty. Like let's make it weirder.
Yeah.
Any Gould says, all I know about Buckaroo is that Star Trek used its props 1 billion times over the years.
Yep. Because again, same art department.
Yeah, and Star Trek Next Generation did not have a lot of money, so they had to find a lot of props in things that were previously made.
Aaron says, it kind of lost my attention somewhere around the middle, and I think it needs to be trimmed down by about 15 minutes or so, but I genuinely enjoyed the first half. Also, we've watched a lot of Cannon movies and Corman movies, and it was nice to watch a pulp movie from the 80s that doesn't feel like it was made by sex offenders. He just wants to do brain surgery and ride a rocket car and have adventures with his bros and play in a band. I genuinely loved when he was singing to Ellen Barkin and told the audience to be nice. Because Buckaroo Banzai is just a cool dude.
He's just a nice guy.
He's proof that you could be the biggest celebrity in the world and still be totally down to earth.
Yeah.
This actually reminds me of another thing I was thinking as I was watching this. It's just like how much Star Wars they put into it. Like, it's just like Star Wars would have been the big movie that just would have, come out in 83 and just right before this. And it's just like, it has the text crawl at the start. It has there's a weird band performance, that happens, like with weird music that you've never heard of before. Yeah. They also have like somebody being choked and then having their neck broken. Like it's just like, Star Wars is a good movie. Got to make sure we have our Star Wars in here.
Yeah.
They're not wrong.
Yeah. And they've been making movies like that for 40 years. How can this be Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Tack, the I Have Some Notes commenting All-Star, has quite some thoughts that I'm excited to share with you now. The short and easy answer is that all this movie needs is to be less understated. Not too much, maybe a bit more bombastic, some editing fixes, agreed, and maybe a slightly bigger budget would have solved everything. But I was sold on this movie being a riff on a movie serial, and I was raised on those forgotten pulpy shorts, and you better believe that's what I want. The opening crawl. I want it to start the same, but quickly devolve into impenetrably summarized lore that scrolls a little too fast to read, and ends with saying, Buckaroo is back now. That's a fun way to
lengthy recap of like the last 3 movies that we never saw.
Perfect. Yep.
And that would also
Monty Python vibes.
Yeah. And it would also let, folks like Dave, you were saying you didn't know that this wasn't based on anything. It would tell you immediately, hey, this isn't actually based on anything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd also like to make Buckaroo's band his public cover. The Clark Kent to his everything else is Superman. One of those secret identities that so many people know, but is still inexplicably secret to the public.
I don't know. I kind of like that he's just like the most famous scientist / gunslinger / rock star in the world. I just kind of, I really like that. It's so stupid and it's so wonderful at the same time. Mm-hmm. He is the main character of life. He is the guy who min-maxed his character at the D&D table.
Where he just rolled a bunch of 18s, but nobody actually saw him roll it. Trust me, I got 5 18s.
Here's the thing. I feel almost like this is a genuine case where the guy rolled 6 18s in a row and the group was just like, we're rolling with it. You're the main character now. Like, we're going to make your band and we're going to go have an adventure and you're the star.
Yeah.
Yeah, be a bard / fighter / monk / yeah.
And let's be clear, if I was sitting at a gaming table and I watched someone roll 18s down the line, I'd be like, you're playing that character. Like, I'm your sidekick now. Like, this is what's happening.
Tack continues, I'd put less emphasis on everyone else waiting on him and having expertise and connections to seek others as he needs them. Unless we want to tell a story of how Buckaroo secretly hates his life and feels trapped by a world that bends over backwards to make him the main character. That may stray too far. Yeah, I do like that, I like the idea of him going to people who can help him. Like part of his skill is he's got this network, not just every ability in his back pocket. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Make Penny a little more of a POV character. Still introduce her late and give her less surprise than she rightfully should have, but still that confusion and asking questions that are never satisfyingly answered. It's a long story. You don't want to know. Mr. Trix left it here and we don't dare move it.
That's where the watermelon came from.
Yeah.
I'd make some of the backgrounds look much more fake and stagey to give it a pulpy B-movie look before going outside or to a more believable set. That would be rad. If it looked like shit until they got to the 8th dimension and then it was a hard sell.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing, though. Greg mentioned earlier on that he loved the tall chairs that the black Lectroids were sitting on, and that looks like a fake B-movie stage. Like you can see that they've taped garbage bags over stuff and that there's just smoke that's been pumped in to cover it up. Like it looks very fakey, but in the most charming way.
100%.
Tack's final thought. Throw in more fake out deaths for Buck and or his friends. Make some of his friends more antagonistic, like they had a falling out, but still there's a mutual respect. Make the music bigger and more epic.
Yeah, they should have had more opportunities to rock out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should have, like, the movie should have been scored by the band. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, the fact that they play a cover in that thing, that's according to Wikipedia, it's like an old song that already exists. There should be at least one, like, Buckaroo Banzai and the Hong Kong Cavaliers song to go with this.
100%.
And half the Cavaliers have to play the song while Buckaroo and the other half save the day, diegetically.
No, that makes perfect sense. They have to use the power of their rock to create a vibration that will match the oscillator so that they can travel to the 8th dimension in the 3rd act.
Yes! Now we're cooking, baby.
Sorry, you just shook something in my mind. Something Amanda observed. It's a note. Sorry, I know we're past it, but it just reminded me. John Lithgow's character, Lizardo, does the experiment in the 30s before it's ready and ends up in the predicament he's in. And then later at the end of the movie, he goes to try to use the rocket ship, but it's not ready. Big Booty's like, it's not ready, but he does it anyway. And would be kind of nice that this character has this consistency of always firing things off before they're ready. But technically it's 2 different characters. One's Lizardo and one's Lord Worfen. And so, it's weird that every time John Lithgow gets his finger on the trigger, his character fires it before it's ready in ways that make no sense. Like, why are you doing that? But enough notes. We've got there. We have fixed the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. But we're not done hopping dimensions. Thank you, Dave and Laena, for joining us on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This was a blast.
Folks will indulge us, I want to kind of sell you on Quantum Kickflip because we are very excited about the 3rd season that is going to debut on June 4th. So Slug Blaster is a tabletop role-playing game created right here in Edmonton. We helped the creator Mikey Ham playtest it. We were the first ones doing a podcast about it. And in the 5-ish years of its development in our podcast, Slug Blaster has become the darling of the indie TTRPG scene, and it is blowing up. So Laena, can you describe Slug Blaster? And Dave, can you describe what we do on Quantum Kickflip Season 3?
Sure.
Slug Blaster is a game where you play a group of teenagers living in a small town where nothing ever goes on. So to pass the time, you use your hoverboards and your ray guns to sneak into other dimensions and have huge adventures. It is gonzo. It is dangerous. It is stupid. It is super cool. You gotta look cool when you do this. It is such a fun game. Straightforward mechanics, incredible vibes, absolutely epic stories that these 16-year-olds go through. And then they go back home where they're grounded.
Being grounded is like a mechanic. It's part of it.
Yeah, it's high stakes to get grounded.
Yeah, that's what makes this game so fun and the show really interesting is that it's like, it's weird and wild, but it also has like real teenage drama in it, which is like fun to play too. In our case, in season 3, each one of our seasons follows like a different group of kids as they go slug blasting and everything. In season 3, it's going to be set at a boarding school in far northern Alberta in a place called Boron Ridge. And it's a boarding school with kids from different dimensions. So every character that's being played is from a different dimension. They come together to get into chicanery across the dimensions. And it's something different. Every season tries to have a different flavor or feel, and I think we found something a lot of fun to play again in this season. And the other thing that we're kind of doing new for this season is that we're going to have rotating game masters. Normally in other seasons we had just one who would just run through the whole season. This time we are tagging off, and we've all kind of created this game together, this story together. And we've been recording it, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it to come out.
And then a little teaser for fans who might be listening about this end, Quantum Kickflip. Some of our characters in this new season, we are using, or at least testing, new signature devices that will be part of the upcoming Slug Blaster expansion. So like, I'm playing a character from Popularia. She's the Guts playbook. And she's got a jailbroken cell phone that does all sorts of wacky sci-fi stuff with her cell phone, for example, which is not a device that was previously available. And then Laena, you and Michael, one of our Michael Vetch, the other podcast participant.
We are not playing humans. I am playing basically a void monster from the hell vampire dimension. And Michael is a blob of slime.
But mechanically, that's relevant because they don't have signature devices. They are their own signature devices.
Our signature devices.
And so the tech for leveling up and advancing is a little different. And that's also going to be in the new expansion. So we're showing that off too. So. Mm-hmm. And Scott, I'm excited. I'm playing a game with Scott soon, and I'm very excited.
Yep.
Scott and Anita.
Oh, very. Meanwhile, I'm playing like the most boring character. I'm like literally a human from this dimension. Like I'm just a guy. Jake Stanley, who's the chill playbook. So he's kind of like, I played him like very like bumbling, very like physical comedy kind of a character. And he's got like these Rift Ninja sneakers that allow him to phase through walls and stuff like that. And he's a little bit of a shit disturber. And it's his dad that is the head teacher of the school. So, So I get to be the normie while everybody else has like these wacky characters.
QuantumKickflip.com, Quantum Kickflip on Blue Sky, and just tune in, either go listen to some old ones or check out the new season, June 4th. You can jump right in on season 3 if you wanted. Thank you, Greg and Scott, for letting us sell our podcast here at the end.
No problem. That's why you brought them here. And also dragged a bunch of listeners, as I understand it, over from the Quantum Kickflip Discord. Speaking of
And further, I
Discord,
Welcome,
brought him here
babies.
for great insights. Yeah.
Speaking of Discord, we have one along with other social media. You can check us out at I have some notes on .bluesky.social. I have some notes over on Instagram. We're still over on Facebook, but as I mentioned, Discord, that's the place to be. There was a great conversation about Buckaroo Banzai. There will be future great conversations. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. You can find the link in the profile of any of the social media accounts we mentioned or over at ihavesomenotes.com. Also, while you're downloading the podcast, maybe give us a little rating and a review on your podcatcher of choice, because that definitely helps us out as well.
And if you would like to get access to some extra content and become an armchair screenwriter, you can visit patreon.com/ihavesomenotes. And for just $3 a month, that's $1 a host, you get access to bonus episodes, old and new, and a shout out on the podcast if you join us and support us in that way. So we really appreciate that support and try to reward you with extra I Have Some Notes content.
Yep, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be going from passing through the 8th dimension to passing through the Stargate, which I think is going to be Kurt Russell's debut on I Have Some Notes. Won't that be fun?
Until then, I'm Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Keep watching the skies and elbows up, Canada.